My name's Jason, I'm 37, and I've been married to my wife, Melissa, who's 34, for almost 9 years. We met through friends, dated for 2 years, and I honestly thought she was the love of my life. She had this fiery personality, funny, sarcastic, the kind of woman who could light up a room. I knew she could be sharp with her words, but I always told myself that was just part of her charm. From the outside, we looked solid. We bought a house in the suburbs, built careers, me in finance, her in marketing, and had what people around us would call the perfect life. No kids, though. Melissa always said she wasn't ready yet, and I didn't push. But over the last year, little things started eating away at me. Melissa used to leave her phone lying around the house. Now it's glued to her hand, face down, always on silent. She used to beg me to watch Netflix with her at night, but suddenly she was too tired or had late calls with the team. When I'd ask her simple stuff, like who she was texting, she'd snap back. God, Jason, why are you so insecure? Can't I have some privacy? I wanted to believe it was just stress from work. She had been gunning for a promotion, working long hours, dealing with pressure. I told myself not to be paranoid, not to turn into that jealous husband cliché. But the gut feeling wouldn't leave me alone. Something was off, badly off, and soon I was about to find out just how deep the lies went. The night I finally got proof started out like any other. Melissa told me she had a team dinner downtown and wouldn't be back until late. No big deal. I grabbed some takeout, poured a drink, and figured I'd watch the game. Around 11:30, I noticed our dog pacing by the window. Melissa still wasn't home. Midnight rolled around, still nothing. I called her, and it went straight to voicemail. Texted her, no response. My stomach was in knots. At 1:15 a.m., headlights flashed in the driveway. Melissa walked in wearing the same dress she'd left in, but her hair was messy, her lipstick smudged, and she reeked of alcohol and a cologne that wasn't mine. I asked how dinner was, and she snapped, exhausting, "Why are you even awake?" Then she disappeared upstairs. The next morning, I couldn't shake it. While she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. She had changed the passcode recently, but I know her too well. It only took me 2 tries. What I found shattered me. A text thread with a guy saved under the name Team Lead. At first glance, maybe it looked work-related, but the messages told a different story. Last night was unreal. Can't stop thinking about your lips. Next weekend, same hotel? And then the photos. Her in bed, smiling, clearly not alone. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. Every late night, every excuse, every fight about me being paranoid. Suddenly, it all made sickening sense. Melissa wasn't just cheating. She was building an entire secret life right under my nose. I didn't plan it, I just snapped. That evening, when Melissa got home, I was sitting at the kitchen table with her phone in front of me. The second she saw it, her face froze. Then she rolled her eyes and hissed, "Really, Jason? Snooping? How pathetic can you be?" I told her I'd seen the messages, the photos, everything. My voice was shaking, but I didn't back down. Her first defense was pure denial. "You're blowing this way, out of proportion. It's just flirting. Nothing happened." When I pressed harder, she shifted gears. "Okay, fine, we kiss once. Big deal. Stop acting like the world's ending." And when I didn't let it go, she finally exploded. "Yes, Jason, I slept with him. Happy now? Is this the drama you wanted?" I just stood there, numb. My wife had admitted to betraying me, and she sounded more annoyed than guilty. No apology. No shame. Just contempt. Then came the knife twist. She crossed her arms and smirked. "Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have needed someone else." That was the moment I realized she wasn't sorry. She wasn't going to beg or cry, or even pretend to care. She wanted me to feel small, like the affair was somehow my fault. And in that moment, part of me died. The shock hit me first, like a sledgehammer to the chest. My ears rang, my vision blurred, and for a second I thought I might actually pass out. I had spent weeks, months even, convincing myself I was paranoid. And now, the ugly truth was sitting across from me, smirking. Then came the anger. It rushed in like fire, hot and uncontrollable. I shouted louder than I ever have in my life. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? To us?" My fist slammed against the counter, rattling the glasses. The dog bolted out of the room. Melissa didn't flinch. She didn't cry or apologize. She just rolled her eyes and said, "God, Jason, calm down. It was just sex. Stop acting like I murdered someone." That line nearly broke me. Just sex. As if our vows, our life together, the trust we'd built, it all meant nothing. The fury inside me was so intense I had to walk out of the house to keep from breaking something. I paced up and down the driveway, gripping my head, trying to breathe. Every second, her words echoed. Boring, pathetic, just sex. I felt humiliated, powerless, like the man I thought I was had been stripped away in a single night. That was the start of the emotional spiral I didn't see coming. After the anger burned out, all that was left inside me was emptiness. I remember sitting at the kitchen table the next morning, staring at a cup of coffee I never touched. My body felt heavy, like even breathing took effort. Melissa came downstairs in her robe, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. She didn't even glance at me. She poured her coffee, muttered about being so tired, and went back upstairs. No apology. No attempt to fix it. Just indifference. That indifference hurt more than the affair itself. The sadness hit like a tidal wave. I thought about our wedding day, how she cried when she promised forever. I thought about the trip we took to Italy when she swore we'd come back for our 10-year anniversary. I thought about the small things, too, the way she'd steal the blankets at night or laugh at dumb TV shows with me. And now I couldn't tell if any of it was real or if she'd just been pretending all along. At work, I went through the motions. My coworkers asked if I was okay, and I lied, saying I was just tired. In truth, I was barely eating, barely sleeping, and when I did sleep, I woke up gasping from dreams of her with him. The anger had been sharp and hot, but the sadness was heavy, crushing. It sat on my chest and made me doubt everything, even myself. Was she right? Was I boring? Was I not enough? I wasn't just broken. I was hollow. I thought I had already hit bottom, but the lies just kept unraveling, one after another, like pulling threads from a sweater until there was nothing left. A few days after the confrontation, my buddy Eric called me. His wife works with Melissa. He hesitated at first, but then he said, "Man, I'm sorry, but everyone at her office knows. They've been seeing her with that guy for months." Turns out, Melissa hadn't even tried to keep it discreet. They left work together all the time, took long lunches, even checked into hotels during so-called conferences. Everyone knew. Everyone but me. The humiliation stung more than the betrayal itself, like the whole world had been in on the joke except me. Then I remembered her Chicago trip a few months earlier. She'd packed a suitcase, showed me an itinerary, even FaceTimed me once from what looked like a hotel room. But when she came home drunk one night weeks later, she slipped up and mentioned a seafood restaurant, one that was in our own city, not Chicago. She hadn't been on a trip at all, just another weekend with him. And the kicker? I found a hotel receipt crumpled in her purse. The date lined up perfectly with the weekend. She told me she was at her mom's house helping with yard work. She didn't even try to hide it well, just tossed it in with some old receipts like it was nothing. When I confronted her, she sneered. "You're obsessed. You're pathetic. If you were half the man he is, I wouldn't need someone else." It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It felt like she enjoyed twisting the knife, like watching me fall apart was entertainment for her. That's when I realized I wasn't just losing my wife. I was living with someone who wanted to see me broken. The breaking point came on a Friday night. I'd had a long, exhausting week at work, and all I wanted was to come home, eat dinner, and maybe watch a movie with my wife. But Melissa didn't come home for dinner. She didn't even text. Around midnight, the front door finally opened. She stumbled in, drunk, her hair a mess, lipstick smudged, smelling of perfume and alcohol that definitely weren't hers. She tossed her purse on the couch and looked at me like I was an inconvenience in my own house. I asked her where she had been. Calmly at first, she smirked and said, "Out, why do you care?" That smirk lit a fire in me. I laid everything out, the receipts, the fake trips, the texts, the rumors from her office. I told her I wasn't paranoid, I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't going to let her gaslight me anymore. She stared at me for a long second, then laughed. A cold, mocking laugh that cut deeper than anything else. "God, Jason, you're pathetic. You should be grateful someone like me even married you." I slammed my fist on the table so hard the dog bolted upstairs. My chest was heaving, my throat raw, and I shouted, "Do you even understand what you've done to us? You've destroyed everything we built." Her answer? A shrug. "Then you'll get over it. Men always do." That was it. That was the moment I knew there was nothing left to save. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even pretending anymore. She stormed upstairs, slammed the bedroom door, and left me standing in the kitchen, shaking, heart racing, staring at the ruins of a marriage I thought would last forever. Before that night, some desperate part of me still hoped we could fix things. After that night, I knew it was over. After that fight, the house turned into a tomb. We didn't talk. We didn't fight. We just existed, like two strangers trapped under the same roof. She moved into the guest room, claiming she needed space. I didn't argue. I couldn't stand to look at her anyway. The silence was worse than the shouting. At least when we screamed at each other, there was some kind of energy, some kind of fire, even if it was toxic. Now there was nothing, just cold air, heavy footsteps in the hallway. Doors closing a little too hard. Melissa stayed out later and later. Sometimes she wouldn't come home at all. When I asked where she was, she smirked and said, "Why do you care? You already know." The cruelty never stopped. She'd throw comments over her shoulder, like knives. "Don't wait up. Mark actually likes spending time with me. Maybe if you worked out instead of sulking, I wouldn't need someone else. God, you're pathetic when you pout." I stopped responding. I stopped fighting. What was the point? It was like trying to scream at a storm. You just get drowned out. So I shrank into myself. Work, home, feed the dog, stare at the TV without really watching. My world became smaller and smaller, just survival mode. And the worst part? Some nights, when the house was dead quiet, I thought I could hear her laughing on the phone with him from a guest room. That laugh used to be my favorite sound in the world. Now it was a dagger. The final straw came when Melissa announced she had to fly to Denver for a big client presentation. She made a whole show of it, printed an itinerary, packed her suitcase with blazers and heels, even waved her boarding pass in front of me before leaving. It was overkill, like she was trying too hard to sell it. That night, while she was supposedly on a plane, I got a text from my buddy Eric. He and his wife were downtown, and guess who they saw? Melissa. Not in Denver. Not on a work trip. Sitting in a booth with Mark, leaning against him, feeding him food like they were teenagers on a date. Eric's wife even snapped a couple of pictures just to prove it. When Melissa came home 2 days later, dragging her suitcase through the door, I played dumb. I asked her how Denver was. She launched into a detailed story, long meetings, stressful clients, even a joke about the hotel coffee being terrible. She didn't miss a beat. I let her finish, then pulled out my phone and showed her the photos. Clear as day, her and Mark together at that bar. For a split second, her face went pale, but then she recovered, scowling. Eric's wife hates me. Of course she'd make something up. When I pushed back, she exploded. "So, what if I lied? You've been suffocating me for years. Mark makes me feel alive." No shame, no remorse, just defiance. She said it like she was proud, like betraying me was her trophy. And in that moment, the last bit of hope I had left burned to ashes. After that blow-up, I crashed harder than I thought possible. It wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was humiliation. Everyone knew. My friends, her coworkers, maybe even strangers who had seen her and Mark out together. I felt like the last fool in the world to get the joke. Nights became unbearable. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing her words on repeat. "Mark makes me feel alive." That sentence looped in my brain until it hollowed me out. I stopped eating properly. Coffee in the morning, maybe a piece of toast, then nothing until late at night, when I'd force down a sandwich. My clothes started to hang loose on me. I didn't notice at first, until a coworker asked if I was sick. At the office, I was a ghost. I'd sit at my desk, staring at spreadsheets, my mind blank. My boss finally pulled me aside one afternoon and said, "Jason, are you okay? You don't seem yourself." I wanted to scream that my wife was tearing my life apart, but all I said was, "Yeah, just tired." I ignored texts from friends, dodged calls from family. I couldn't face the pity in their voices. I couldn't stand to admit how badly I'd been played. At home, the silence was total. Melissa and I barely crossed paths. She stayed gone most nights now, and I didn't ask questions. I didn't want the answers. That was rock bottom, the point where anger, sadness, and numbness all blended into one heavy fog. I felt like a shell of myself, like a ghost haunting the ruins of my own life. And I knew if I didn't make a choice soon, I was going to drown in it. One night, I sat on the couch in the dark, the dog curled up at my feet, and it hit me. If I stayed in this marriage, it was going to kill me. Not literally, maybe, but piece by piece, my confidence, my health, my sanity. Melissa wasn't going to change. She wasn't sorry. And I couldn't live like this anymore. I grabbed a notebook and made 2 columns, stay and leave. Under stay, I wrote, more lies, more humiliation, more nights alone, more contempt. Under leave, I wrote, pain, fear, uncertainty, but also freedom. Peace, a chance to breathe again. Looking at the list, the answer was obvious. Staying was slow death. Leaving was ripping the bandage off, but at least it meant I could start to heal. The next morning, I told Melissa I wanted a divorce. I braced myself for a fight, for tears or begging or rage. Instead, she laughed, actually laughed. Then she said, "Good luck, Jason. No one else is going to put up with you. Mark already promised he'll take care of me." Her words stung, but in a strange way, they freed me. For the first time in months, I felt a weight lift off my chest. She thought she was cutting me down, but all she really did was prove I was making the right call. I was done. The day after I told Melissa I wanted a divorce, I called a lawyer. Walking into his office felt humiliating at first, like I was admitting failure, but the second I explained my situation, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Jason, she's made her choice. Now you need to make yours. File quickly. Protect yourself." So I did. I spent the next week digging through drawers, pulling bank statements, mortgage documents, insurance papers, everything that tied us together. Every page felt like I was dismantling my marriage piece by piece. When the papers were finally served, Melissa barely blinked. She smirked and said, "Took you long enough. Mark already said he'll take care of me." The arrogance in her voice almost made me laugh. She thought she was winning when all I felt was relief. Packing up my things was brutal. Every item had a memory attached to it. The couch where we spent lazy Sundays, the framed photo from our Italy trip, even the mugs we bought on some road trip years ago. I boxed up what was mine and left the rest. I kept repeating to myself, "They're just things, Jason. Your peace is worth more." There was one thing I refused to leave behind, the dog. Melissa didn't fight me on it. Maybe because deep down she knew he'd choose me anyway. He'd been my only source of loyalty in that house, and I wasn't letting him go. The day I walked out, I dropped the keys on the counter and closed the door behind me. I felt gutted, but also strangely lighter. My marriage was dead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could breathe again. Moving into my new apartment felt surreal. It was tiny compared to the house, just one bedroom with plain white walls and secondhand furniture. But it was mine. No lies, no tension, no Melissa. The first week was brutal. I kept catching myself setting out 2 mugs in the morning before realizing it was just me now. The bed felt massive and empty, the silence pressing in from all sides. But it wasn't the suffocating silence I'd known in that house. It was clean, calm, almost healing. The dog adjusted faster than I did. He curled up beside me every night like he knew I needed him. Honestly, he probably saved me from going completely off the deep end, but the aftershocks still came. I ran into mutual friends who gave me pity looks, like they didn't know what to say. I scrolled past pictures of Melissa and Mark on social media, smiling like they hadn't burned 2 lives to the ground. Some nights, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, her voice echoing in my head. "You're pathetic. Mark makes me feel alive." Still, something slowly shifted. The longer I was away from her, the clearer things became. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't boring or worthless. I was loyal to someone who didn't deserve it. And now, I finally had space to see that truth. It hurt, yes, but for the first time in months, I felt like maybe I could start to heal. As the weeks passed, I started seeing the whole picture with a painful kind of clarity. Melissa's cheating wasn't just a sudden mistake. It was the final crack in a wall that had been crumbling for years. Her constant criticism, her dismissive attitude, the way she made me feel small, I used to laugh it off as her being her. But now I knew better. That wasn't personality. That was contempt. The affair just tore the mask off. She never really respected me. Maybe she never truly loved me, at least not in the way I thought. To her, I was safe, predictable, convenient. And when the thrill faded, she went looking for someone else, then twisted it to make it seem like it was my fault. I started writing down the things I'd learned, like reminders to my future self. Trust your gut. If you feel something's wrong, it probably is. I wasted months ignoring mine. Respect matters more than passion. Love without respect isn't love, it's control. Their betrayal isn't your failure. Melissa cheated because of who she is, not because of who I am. Most of all, I realized something I'd been too scared to admit before. Being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who makes you feel worthless. It didn't make the pain vanish, but it gave it meaning, and that made it easier to carry. At some point, I realized sitting in my apartment replaying the betrayal over and over wasn't going to change anything. Melissa had already taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let her take the rest of my life, too. So I started with small steps. I went back to the gym, even though at first it felt like I was dragging a dead weight behind me. Slowly, the routine gave me structure, and with every drop of sweat, I felt some of the poison leaving my body. I picked up my guitar again, something Melissa used to roll her eyes at and call a waste of time. I'd play for hours, fingers sore, but for the first time in months, I felt like myself. I started cooking actual meals instead of living on takeout. Even something as simple as making a decent dinner became an act of defiance, proof I could still care for myself. And I reached out. I told friends the truth about what happened. At first, it was humiliating to say out loud, but every time I did, the burden felt lighter. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't carrying her shame. Therapy helped too. My therapist told me, healing isn't about erasing what happened, it's about reclaiming yourself from it. That stuck with me. Little by little, I stopped seeing myself as the man Melissa cheated on and started seeing myself as the man who survived her. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was still standing, and I was. When the divorce papers were finally signed, I expected to feel crushed. But instead, I felt lighter. It wasn't happiness, exactly, but it was relief. The rope tying me to Melissa's chaos had finally been cut. I started rebuilding my life from scratch. My apartment became my canvas. No more dull, aesthetic furniture Melissa insisted on. I bought a couch that was actually comfortable, hung posters I liked on the walls, painted one room a bold color, just because I could. For the first time in years, my space reflected me. Not us, not her, just me. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with. We went out for beers, we laughed, and for a few hours, I felt like myself again. My best friend told me, "Man, it's like you're finally breathing." He was right. I even started traveling a bit. Weekend trips, small hikes, places I'd always wanted to see, but never did because Melissa would complain. Standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean, I realized how big the world was, and how small she had made mine. The strangest part was learning to enjoy the quiet. The silence in that house with her used to be suffocating, filled with tension. The silence in my apartment was peaceful. It was the sound of freedom. No lies, no fights, no betrayal. I wasn't healed yet, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a future worth living. Even though I cut Melissa out of my life, the world had a way of keeping me updated about her whether I wanted it or not. A few months after the divorce, a mutual friend casually mentioned seeing her and Mark together. They looked happy, he said, then quickly added, "Sorry, man, I shouldn't have said that." At first, it stung. I pictured them laughing at restaurants, holding hands, maybe even talking about the future she once promised me. The image clawed at my chest and made me feel small all over again. But then the gossip started to shift. I heard that Mark had still been married when the affair started, and that his wife found out. The fallout was ugly, lawyers' custody battles, and a nasty split. Suddenly, Melissa wasn't just the other woman. She was the woman who helped blow up another family. A few months later, I got another update. Apparently, Melissa and Mark had been fighting constantly. People had seen them arguing in public, her storming out of bars, him chasing after her. Someone even told me she was already flirting with another guy on the side. And you know what? For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel jealousy. I felt relief. Whatever chaos she carried, she was carrying it away from me now. I wasn't part of that circus anymore. And that was freedom. Acceptance didn't come as some big epiphany. It crept in slowly, like sunlight sneaking through blinds in the morning. One day, I realized I hadn't thought about Melissa in weeks. Another day, I noticed her name didn't make my chest tighten anymore when it came up in conversation. The memories were still there, of course. The wedding, the trips, the laughter. But they felt like someone else's life now, distant, blurry, no longer sharp enough to cut me. Even the painful parts, the fights, the lies, the contempt, had dulled into scars. Ugly reminders, yes, but no longer bleeding. I stopped asking why. Why she cheated. Why she treated me like garbage. Why I stayed so long. The truth is, no answer would ever satisfy me. She cheated because that's who she is, not because of who I am. One evening, I sat on my balcony with a beer, my dog curled up at my feet, and it hit me I was at peace. Not euphoric, not over it in the way people imagine, but calm. I didn't want her back. I didn't even hate her anymore. She simply didn't matter. That was acceptance, knowing the past didn't know me anymore, and that I could finally walk forward without dragging her ghost behind me. Looking back now, I realize Melissa's betrayal was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. But it was also the thing that woke me up. I thought it destroyed me, but really it forced me to rebuild. And what I've built since is stronger than what I lost. If you're reading this because you suspect something is wrong in your relationship, here's my advice. Trust your gut. I spent months gaslighting myself, convincing myself I was paranoid. Deep down, I already knew. Respect matters more than love. Passion comes and goes. But once respect is gone, the relationship is over. Don't ignore contempt. Don't carry their shame. Cheating isn't your failure. It's theirs. Their lack of loyalty, not your lack of worth. Leaving hurts, but staying destroys you. The pain of walking away is sharp, but it heals. Staying in a toxic marriage is slow poison. Today, I'm not the man Melissa tried to break. I'm someone new. Someone who knows his value, who can enjoy peace, who isn't afraid of being alone. If my story helps even one person out there realize they deserve better, then it was worth sharing. Because if I survived it, you can too.